one of those players that hasn't been called up for England is Jack Grealish, of course, and his future seems to be up in the air for club and country. What's next for him now? How frustrating will it be for him that he's not getting the game time that he probably wants at City, and now he's been left out of Tuchel's first England squad now as well.
Yeah, I think the Tuchel quotes were reasonably damning for Jack actually. You got to semi-read between the lines, but Tuchel sort of talked about there's too much heat on Jack Grealish. He didn't say that directly, but he was implying that he needs to stay out the papers and he needs to stay out the headlines. And it, I don't think like if it was any other player just going for one pint at the weekend when they had the weekend off, I don't really think anyone would have a discussion. But there seems to be a trend, around Jack, and there's a lot of narrative about this constantly because there's probably no smoke without fire to an extent. I think we have to be realistic and honest about um, ultimately, if this keeps happening to you, people keep following you around. They're following you around because you're going to create a story, even if the story is minor. He's 29 years old now, Jack Grealish. He's won an awful lot. When you see incidents like this and you see Guardiola hinting at similar things and hinting at, I have no doubts in the quality of Jack Grealish, well, when you say, I think he's great with his quality, you're implying that maybe there's another reason that he's not in the team. It's what people don't say and what they imply, like that suggests a sort of issue there. And I do think Jack Grealish, Guardiola loved him, when we won the treble for what he brings in. Given that Guardiola is obsessed right now with um he's talking about how City can't complete long transitions of passes. We can't get 20, 30 passes together. He mentions it all the time that our quality isn't there. And we know Jack Grealish is wonderful at keeping the ball, slowing things down. And he was a large part of that treble success towards the end of the season where we smothered teams, we suffocated them like a boa constrictor. We were just so oppressive as a side, keeping the ball. And Jack Grealish is a big part of that. But he's not playing right now, despite, I would argue, obvious deficiencies in how Guardiola wants to play. And it makes you ask the question, why? Why isn't he playing? Is there something going on that we don't know about it? It is just speculation here. But then you've got Guardiola hinting at things, and you've got Tuchel essentially saying it's uh, uh, it's not a Jack Grealish quality issue, it's something else. Enough very high quality elite managers here. The two in his career both saying the same things that it does. I think some of this has to fall back on Jack Grealish, and he said to Tuchel apparently like I'm a guy who needs a run of games, to get to my very best. I'm sure that's true, but so do a lot of players, Jack. A lot of do, and it's on him to turn that around. He's going to have to earn the trust of Guardiola again and Tuchel again. He might have it, but how much does he have it? Because I can't help but feel that Guardiola will be leaning on him a lot more, as he always has done. Because I think he needs him to be the best version of Jack Grealish, and he's still not playing him, which I think it tells a story. I don't know the full picture, but there is something there.
Well, how much time do you think he's got maybe to turn this around? I mean, there's rumours that he could even leave in this summer. So what's sort of the situation there? Has he got the time to turn it around?
I'm going to be blunt and sort of try and drop the reasonable head for once. And as I'm trying to do, this is just my personal opinion, not necessarily the views of Silver City fans. But I think Guardiola, I reckon Guardiola's quite frustrated with him because look, Grealish has said in no uncertain terms. I'm paraphrasing, can't remember the exact quote, but he essentially implied off the treble he completed football and he doesn't really know where to go from here. That is true to an extent, but it is a sort of an eyebrow raising thing to say because you ask Rodri or De Bruyne or they go, we win the league next season. That's what we do. And I know Grealish feels that way too, but I think there's an element of Grealish telling the truth there. And I do feel like I don't think Jack Grealish has the mentality of a Ruben Diaz. I don't think he has the mentality of an Erling Haaland. And he said it before. He says he watches what Haaland does in training. He's like, oh, this guy's a machine. And Jack Grealish likes to relax and wind down. There's nothing wrong with that. But they aren't the players that spend 10 years at Cleveland, Manchester City. They're the players who come and disappear and move on after a few years because I don't think they have the energy and the emotion and the focus to go 10 years in a row trying to push your body to the extremes. I don't think Jack Grealish has that. I think Jack Grealish has won enough in his head. And I really think that's a psychological issue that Jack Grealish has. And he said that publicly. And I think I don't think the focus is there. And he's getting on a little bit. Now he's 29. He should be one of the statesmen of the team. And look, and I think Jack Grealish, if Jack Grealish had been a 100% success, he would be the guy now that would have improved so much at City after winning that at 29 years old that we lean on now. He would have been one of our key players starting every week because look, um you look at someone like, Bernardo Silva who signed a young player and then became a key player for years. Unrelentless, unquestionable and relentless player that was always in the side, and like Guardiola lent on and lent on and lent on to win trophy after trophy, and people like Gundogan and John Stones eventually got better and better and better. But Jack Grealish hasn't turned into that. If anything, he had a reasonably slow start, but then peaked. And there's just been more questions with every passing month, and it doesn't really matter where you stand on Jack Grealish, be it really positive or really negative. I think we'd all have to accept and agree that there's just more questions. And even if you don't agree with the answers, the questions are there, and there is no questions around Rodri. There's no questions around Haaland. There's no questions around people like that about their focus or mentality because they answer them with their dedication and performances. And you just can't have that discussion because they don't let that discussion exist. Jack Grealish does let that discussion exist. And you can argue all you want, people do over whether it's fair or not. But it's there because Jack Grealish lets it be, and that is the truth of it. There's no stories about Haaland drinking at the weekend, or there's no stories about the focus of Ruben Diaz, or there's no comments from the managers, the international sides of most of these players, because these managers don't have those doubts, and it's not there. So I think ultimately, in my opinion, Jack Grealish is irrelevant, as is yours, as is any of ours. The point is, it's there and it's a narrative, and the press don't just pick these players, and they do to an extent and dig. They do, but I'm sure they've tried it with other footballers, but it's just not come out because it's just not there. So I think Grealish has to accept responsibility, and my gut is telling me that he doesn't have the real, true elite level focus to do 10 years at Manchester City. I think he's won an awful lot, and I would guess he will move on. He might stay, but I think there's frustration there behind his professional focus. And I think if you believe some of the stories that are around as well, it doesn't paint the best picture.